So I wanted to share like a quick story, so as a lot of people know, like grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I went to Calabasas High School, which is in the San Fernando Valley, and it was a very interesting experience. But I want to talk about one idea. I had a friend of mine who I grew up with. His name's Kenta. I hope he's not like bothered by me saying his name, but him and his father were tremendous, who passed away in blessed memory, Bob Brooks. And I want to just give us some appreciation because, you know, growing up, my dad was a very successful person, and a lot of the people we grew up with were very successful people. However, Bob Brooks was extraordinarily successful, right? And I remember one day years ago, Kenta told me about them doing different deals because his father owned a bank, different things like this, and they were like over $1 billion, right? So he's coming from that type of a space, right? They're in the finance, these types of things, they make a lot of money. But I want to tell a story. So when we were kids, at times we would go to Kenta's dad's office, right? We would go, he would hang out. There was always celebrities and cool people there and all types of things happening. And so it was always exciting for us being young kids. You always like had attractive people there, the whole thing, right? So I remember one day when I started to go on my spiritual journey, and I was at the Kabbalah Center and this whole dynamic, and I was growing. And I remember having a conversation with Mr. Rooks about this. And he told me a story. He just told stories, like these amazing stories that were so deep. And I want to share one of them with you. So he told me a story. He said, he gave me an example. It was more of a parable than it was anything. And so he said that he told me the story about, he said, there's two types of African Americans who go into environments and how they act. And I think this is a very important point. Extremely important point, and it connects to a very deep Torah idea, is that he says that there's two types of people, two types of African American guys that get in these circles, right? And he was giving me a lot of strength. He said, imagine, one of these like really fancy presidential fundraising events where it's like catered to the max, and you got all these big donors there, all these wealthy people there. You have the president, who's going to come in and share some words. You have other people who are in administration there. It's high level stuff, right? So there's two types of black guys. One black guy comes in and he, is an Ivy League guy. He's an Ivy League guy. He's straight. He's a good guy. He went to Princeton. He was in a certain frats. He graduated with an MBA. He studied abroad, the whole thing, right? Grew up in the suburban community. Maybe he's even biracial, who knows? But he comes in, and what he does is he comes to that event. And so he comes to the event and he's wearing his frat sweater or whatnot, or his pin, and he's going around and he's shaking hands, he's connecting, and everyone's loving him. Everybody's connected because he's familiar to them. And that's a very important place. He's a very classy, well-dressed person. Now there's another black guy who comes in there, and he's wearing maybe just a sports jacket, some jeans. He doesn't really look affiliated to anything. And he walks in and he doesn't look at anybody. He goes straight to the buffet, and he sees fried chicken. He was being, Mr. Rooks is being funny. He says, sees fried chicken. He just goes over and he just starts eating it. He's just eating this fried chicken, right? And so he says that all the rich people in that room are going to want to know, who is that guy? Who's the guy who came into the room of all this wealth and all this prominence, is not even thinking about us, and went over there and start eating? He's very content with himself, which means he has something that we don't have. He has something that we need, right? The other guy who went to Princeton and the whole thing, he's trying to fit in. He's trying to get in with those guys. So they know he's lacking the same way that they're lacking. They're all in there trying to get some business, some opportunity. That's why they're there, right? It's not about politics. It's about their personal opportunity. So that guy who went to Princeton, he goes in and he fits in, he connects, but he has nothing to contribute other than familiarity of environment, right? Oh, Steve and Bill from this, and I learned with them there and this type of thing, all that. But the guy who comes in, who goes straight to the buffet, and then from that buffet, he's just doing his own thing, he is the guy that everyone wants to know, why isn't he trying to come over here and get from us? That means he must have a lot. Let's find out what he has. This is the thinking process of people. So as a young kid, I couldn't have been more than 21 years old at the time, because when I first started Kabbalah Center, it's like that was amazing information to learn, to hear this message. And what I took from it was like, hey, you know what? The more that you're yourself, the more that you don't come off as a person who's needy, the more everyone's going to want to connect to you. Everyone's going to want to network with you because you're going to have something special. And this is the message that God has given us as Jewish people, as B'nai Israel, right? He says to us, he says, you know what? You guys are the key to humanity reaching its full potential. You being a transmitter of this light of the Torah is why you guys were created to begin with. So sometimes when us Jews, when we're in environments of the other nations and there's wealth and there's opulence, some of us want to put on a different sweater. We want to act a certain way. We want to fit in. We want to use common language, and we're trying to get that going. But the Jew is there to provide something that no one else has. This is the guy who walks in and eats the fried chicken. So we should always spiritually eat our personal fried chicken as Bob Brooks, and he should have the highest aliyah and shemayim, meaning his soul should elevate to the highest levels of heavens. He should be blessed for the inspiration he gave me and many others. I'm speaking specifically for myself, a Jew who is keeping the Torah. His words have inspired me to connect to God. And we should all know that it's our uniqueness is what the world wants, not our conformity.